The big theme of CPAC is America versus socialism. And I know this is something that you guys in the Trump administration are very focused on. You're focused on fighting back against socialism. President Trump has said it a number of times, including in State of the Union addresses, that America will never be a socialist country. Can you make the case for us against socialism? What's wrong with socialism? Because we see all these people voting for Bernie Sanders, but I don't know. It seems like it's a little bit of a radical ideology. Explain for us what's wrong with socialism.
Yeah, I think for starters, the main thing that people don't know is the degree to federal control that comes into it. We believe in freedom. The other side believes in control. So when Barack Obama runs for office and says we need to have electricity prices necessarily skyrocket, he's trying to control the energy market and have American families go in a different direction based on their needs. When people talk about Medicare for all, what they're trying to do is they're trying to put a government bureaucrat between you and your family, between them and their doctor. And so what we want to do is to make sure that people have freedom, that my daughter who needs life-saving medicine doesn't have to go to a government bureaucrat to make sure that she can get that important care. That's ultimately about what is what this debate is about: is federal control, government control, or whether American families and small businesses are free to live their lives.
So one of the things that's been really interesting over the Trump administration is, and the establishment media just refuses to talk about the successes of the Trump administration. In fact, I think it was an ABC producer or something was caught on tape not too long ago. Anyway, saying that they deliberately don't cover the good news. So I want to talk to you about some of those things. So can you tell us about some of the things that President Trump, because he's talked about this a little bit in the State of the Union and different addresses that he gives, about several of the things that he's done on the deregulation front, because I think that's a big reason why we've seen the economy doing as well as it is. So explain that for us.
Yeah,
it's important what you guys are doing at OMB.
It's huge, Matt. He gave us a goal of 2 deregulatory initiatives for every 1 regulatory. You were covering the campaign when he made those important promises. We've been able to do upwards of 7 deregulatory initiatives for every 1. In just 3 years, that's $50 billion in costs that American families are not going to experience. And if you look at the economy-wide, that's $200 billion in economic savings. Just to give you a comparison, the first 3 years of the Obama administration, they did $245 billion in new costs as opposed to savings. So again, you're seeing it across the economy. You're seeing it in cheaper energy prices. You're seeing it in lower health insurance costs, and the American people are really benefiting from it.
So now another big policy area that I know you guys are focused on, a potential infrastructure deal. Is that something that may come down the pike here? I know that the Democrats have been talking about even potentially doing it, which is remarkable after they went through with their whole nonsense impeachment thing. But is that a possibility this year? I mean, what do you think?
It's possible. I mean, I think the Democrats need to put aside their love for tax increases and making sure that, in the conversations we've had with them, they continue to want to roll back the president's tax hikes. So obviously that's not some his tax cuts. That's obviously not we're not going to do. And we're not going to do anything that will hurt the economy right now. So if that's the case, if they're willing to just do an infrastructure package and look for savings elsewhere than tax increases, we're happy to have that conversation.
So now, speaking of the whole impeachment nonsense thing, so we saw this play out over the course of this the impeachment thing, where we saw all these people go up to Capitol Hill and testify, all these deep state, career bureaucracy type people, and they. There was a common theme. None of them could point to anything that the president did wrong. They just disagreed with him on policy. And I think this is a really interesting thing, and I want to ask you this. Who sets the foreign policy of the United States? Is it the president, or is it this unelected bureaucracy?
Yeah, it's the duly elected commander-in-chief who was put in office by the American people. And we see this time and time again of kind of a view of government that says that the executive branch is run by independent, nonpartisan individuals. Well, what beliefs do they have? They're not the ones that the American people put this president in office to accomplish. And we certainly saw that on a grand scale, an unfortunate scale, with the sham impeachment proceedings. But it is one that I think also gives the American people a glimpse about why this president has fought so hard on their behalf. He wants to make sure that when he's trying to manage the affairs of the country, he's got people working for him that get up every morning and say, how do we accomplish what the president's trying to do?
My last question for you, and because you are the director of OMB, Office of Management and Budget, is, okay, we get a lot of calls about this. A lot of our listeners are very fired up about this, about the national debt, the deficit. How do we get that under control? What do we do to get to a place where we're sustainable again? Because, I mean, for the last, 20 years, things have just spiraled for a long time, and I don't know where the blame lies, but how do we get back to a place where we have a sustainable debt and deficit?
We need to actually approve what the president has continued to put forward to Congress. He has put forward 4 now budgets that have more spending restraints, spending reductions than any president in history. So our last budget that we sent up about 2 or 3 weeks ago has $4.6 trillion in deficit reduction. Very, very important. We would balance the budget. We would ensure that we are no longer experiencing these deficits that you mentioned. It has to happen. We need the American people probably to remind Washington, D.C. that they balance their budgets. We're probably going to have a national election in between, but this is something the president has continued to lead on, and we need Congress to come alongside of us.
And also, your wife, Mary, is moderating a panel here on pro-life issues here. Tell us about that, too.
Sure. And
yeah, Mary's a good friend, by the way. I love Mary. So,
She's did a great job on kind of unpacking with other women on the stage what it means to be pro-life, what are the impacts on American families, and what really the strategy is going forward to make America a more pro-life country.
All right. Well, Russ Vought, Acting Director of the Office of Management and Budget. Where can people go to learn more about what you guys do at OMB?
Our website, omb.gov, is out there, and we'd love for people to check out the work that we do.